Good evening and welcome to Mountain Bears. Let's get our coffee on. Let's talk about, I don't know, maybe the cell phone not working, but working, but not working.
Well, it is now.
Well, yeah.
It is now. Oh, so if you're like us, you woke up the other morning with no cellular service. Actually, Thursday morning. So you woke up Thursday morning with no cell phone service, or otherwise were informed that somewhere between 4 a.m. and what was it, about noon?
Yeah.
Yeah, so about 8 hours.
Right.
AT&T could not phone home.
Worse than, ET.
Worse than ET. Well, it took ET longer to phone home.
That's just because he had to ride in a milk carton.
But it was cooler.
Exactly.
Just saying. Hey, Brenda.
Hello, Brenda. So what do we know about this according to the government?
Well, according to AT&T and the government, this was basically a software glitch, not a cyber attack. They keep being very adamant this was not a cyber attack. There were also some other original rumors, ranging anywhere from solar flares, which there is solar activity right now, and some equipment is having issues related to that.
Right.
To Fox News, their interpretation was this was a dry run of an electromagnetic pulse event.
Right.
Which is interesting. Because how do you do a dry run of an electromagnetic pulse? Now, I assume what they mean is this was like their interpretation of a massive outage would be an electromagnetic pulse event.
Right.
That if you were to dry run it,
right,
using their terminology, that if you disabled the network,
right,
for multiple hours,
right,
then arguably,
right,
you could see the fallout and problems that would ensue.
See, my thing is thou dost to protest too much.
Yeah.
Well,
here's the deal, though. So I've had one sparked idea, and I try so hard not to join the conspiracy theory bandwagon. But as tight-lipped as AT&T has been on this, I've started to debate what the words expand their network could also mean.
Right. Phone the aliens?
No. I'm thinking it's much simpler than that, and it will actually be part of our next story.
Okay.
And this has a lot to do with the fact these two events occurred this week. I think it's so much simpler than that. I think either AT&T tried to expand their network by involving artificial intelligence in writing its code, either as a intentional effort across their platform to make sure they had the most optimized code out there, or some junior developer in the age of ChatGPT can do it all, had ChatGPT do its homework. And resultant of that.
Well, see, we've dealt with expansion of network with Optimum and Suddenlink. You know, we've heard the statement, oh, we're going to expand our network, upping your fees. Okay. But I've never seen them send the FBI, the FCC into an office faster. Like they rolled DC out of their bed and it was like, get your ass there now at 4 a.m. in the morning.
Right. Well, but that's kind of the repercussions of introducing machine generated code. In terms of this is if this were to be an AI code generation situation,
right,
and this were the outcome effect, then yes, you would get that response. One, you just took down a national network and you did it how?
Right.
I'm sorry, you let the AI do it for you.
Right.
We'll be right there.
Right.
Like, someone hold my beer. Right. Like, hold my beer. Like, we're gonna go down to AT&T and we're gonna beat some people up. Is about the response level you get out of that from federal agencies,
right?
Because this is not, some paralegal or first year law student who is just banging on a typewriter or a keyboard effectively to generate a bunch of garbage that no one's ever going to read or care about, but is a requirement to go into this lawsuit. And someone actually decided to check the case, law.
Right. A good research attorney.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there, when those situations occur, it's been kind of funny. That's why I wonder if this is an AI meets global communications network. Spectacular disaster ensues.
Well, see, I still are debating cyber attack.
I mean, it would be a cyber attack in a sense. But it would create the same concerns actually as a cyber attack or in relative perspective. Because if, again, and I know this is a little tinfoil hatty, but it's also kind of simple. If they have gone the route of trying to machine generate code, and they are not carefully reviewing it,
right,
and don't necessarily understand what it's doing and why, it can actually open up a network to a lot of vulnerability.
Right.
The same thing would occur, and we're not trying to knock AI. We're not trying to knock ChatGPT. It's a very useful tool, especially if you're in business right now and you really are just kind of having to bang on the keyboard to do some things, and this is grunt work.
Right.
Like we've used it extensively, and carefully checked.
Yes.
To help out our clients in a few different situations, usually by finding better ways or more engaging ways of saying things. I know you've talked about using it to improve communications you're about to send.
Right. Well, none
So
of
that you
improve
can
like SEO, because that's the game right now. Is you want top SEO on all messages.
Mhm.
You know, but
and these are things that it does beautifully, and I think there's a beautiful use of it.
yes,
Like, my God. And not to mention writing product descriptions. Jesus Christ. That is the most mind-numbing activity.
right,
That is a form of communication
right.
that I appreciate people
Mm-hmm.
who can write product copy all day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a thing.
Yeah.
I've met them. They're amazing people. I have no clue how their brains have not exploded yet. Because there's only so many positive, happy, excited ways you can talk about, like, coffee filters. You know what I mean? Like, what?
Right.
It's a... Like, if I were doing this job, I'd make it like 5 minutes, and I would be like, it's a fucking coffee filter. What the fuck do you want me to say about a fucking coffee filter? It's a goddamn coffee filter. Are you trying to have coffee? Use a fucking coffee filter. It's like a condom for your coffee. Except it leaks.
So it's
Buy fucking
lambskin.
coffee filters. That's like, that would be me 5 minutes into it, and I'm done.
Right.
Like, I rage quit and leave.
And comes home and with a cheesecake and teases me with it.
Do what now?
And then you come home with cheesecake and tease me with it.
Basically, yes. Also, it may end up being the best product copy ever written, but still.
Right.
You'd sell some fucking coffee filters, especially if you rename the brand.
Right. But here's the thing. They're being too tight-lipped. They were slow to respond. They were very slow. Like, they called a PR agent and a government official in there to go, what do we tell the people?
Well, we can't tell them the truth.
Right.
Well, and that's sometimes part of the issue.
Right.
Well, with any large scale event within companies, is that sometimes what actually happened is not anything anyone ever needs or wants to know about. As in, it's not really going to change anything. It can humiliate the company, and it can cost them a lot of brand points.
Right. Well,
because I mean, when you talk about AT&T, that is a very old, very massive company. Like, they're like number 13 on the Fortune 500 list. Like, I looked it up before the show. They're number 13.
Right.
And I think that at this point in the evolution of AI and like ChatGPT, for example,
right.
We're not saying that's what occurred. I'm just saying, if it is, right now, for a company like AT&T, this is almost the moment where you go back to the old internet joke about, we're a Fortune 500 company. We do not use Comic Sans.
Yes.
You can replace the words Comic Sans with ChatGPT. It would fit.
True, but at the same time, I'm sitting here looking at them and looking at their behavior, and I smell a fly in the ointment.
Yeah, I'd say if it is this, it would definitely be a very big deal.
Right. The other
but what are your thoughts on like alternative? Like, I don't think it's a. I mean, I know you've banted around that it could be a cyber attack.
But think about it. When is the most vulnerable time a network is vulnerable?
During its maintenance window.
Exactly.
Which is what a lot of people have pointed out. And like it wasn't my first thought. 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is midnight Pacific Dateline Time. And that is your typical update window.
Right.
Is because you're basically affecting the least number of awake users. Like most website traffic takes a total nosedive. Most websites take a nosedive in that window between, and you have a good solid 2 to 3 hours between 4 a.m. Eastern and 7 a.m. Eastern,
right,
and midnight Pacific and 3 a.m. Pacific. You're still across the country hitting people while they're in bed, asleep, don't care. Percentage-wise, the most people. Yes, people are still using your service. Yes, people are still on your website. God knows Amazon won't try it.
Amazon does it during midnight GMT. That is when they do updates.
Which has more to do with the fact that no matter when they do updates, we're fucked. That like, I can see that being the conversation in the middle of Amazon's,
right,
IT department, is that it doesn't matter when we do updates. There is no better time.
Right.
None.
Right.
So just throw them out there and good luck. Right. Because if it takes anything down, we're so screwed. Is the general theory behind that.
Right. But anyway, in my opinion, it was a cyber attack. We probably will not hear about it for 20 freaking years. And
that is a possibility.
When we do hear about it, it'll be in like this one footnote.
I think it's going to be one of those things that it's going to end up being someone involved that really shouldn't have been involved, no matter which way it goes. Because if it's a cyber attack, no one's claimed credit for it, have they?
I don't think they have, but at the same time, would you?
I'm sorry, fuck prison. If I had just pulled off a cyber attack big enough to take down AT&T, continental United States, every single customer, I don't care. I'm going to prison. I will schedule the press conference.
But here, this is the thing, though. If this was just a dry run, because, what they're covering up is they didn't say that Verizon and T-Mobile was also down.
I think those are unintended effects. I think there was some overlap that I don't think T-Mobile and Verizon want to talk about.
Right.
That there's somewhere in the system that they merge. Either as one, like, so to speak, global entity of cellular service,
right,
or in some way as the systems start to overlap in a few places,
right,
and so that it may be a Verizon tower, but it's not.
Right. Well, again, I personally think, if they were being up and up, they would have came out earlier, clearer. They would have told us what they were doing instead of being vague, so that they're not lying, but not really telling you the whole truth.
Yeah.
I have this incredible way of knowing when someone's telling me bullshit. Or, what do I call it when you do it? Paul Harvey and me. And this one screams Paul Harvey. The rest of the story will come out in 30 years.
Well, I think they told us what happened. I don't think they told us the context.
Exactly.
I think legitimately it was code that should have been better vetted.
Right.
Which is basically what they got down to. And that like this was a planned update.
Yeah.
Code should have been better vetted. Is basically what they said.
And see,
And I don't think that's untrue. I do think I think we'll all agree with you that there's a rest of the story that goes with that, because that doesn't explain much.
No.
Because typically, if we're talking about a normal human coder made a mistake, this would typically want to be, it would be compelling itself into becoming a business case study.
Well,
of what happened to AT&T, how this occurred, what, because when large companies make mistakes,
right.
There's generally like an inbuilt golden egg,
right?
Of this becomes a massive teaching tool about the power how one little mistake can go into a system and take it all down, all because we didn't do X, all because this was predicated on a bad structure.
Right. Now, I've worked with very large companies, and what I do not understand is why is these things not being sandboxed? What's the deal? Like, have y'all guys forgotten Sandbox, where you run it, you test it, you retest it, you globalize use it in your beta group, and
it may be a situation where their sandboxing environment and the real world environment may not have everything in common that you would hope.
Well, that tells
me, or part of what they did had an unanticipated effect that didn't show up in sandboxing, but when it went live.
Right, but you don't release expansions on a national level.
Not typically, and I think that's the other point where people are like, don't y'all usually roll this out in limited markets first?
Yes.
Because that's how you've always done it.
Yeah.
Is like you pick a target market to test the new features. Then you start rolling it into major metros.
Right.
And because that way, like, okay, you took down Houston, Texas, that's a problem.
Right.
But it's Houston, Texas, or New York, or Miami, or, a couple of major cities are without service. And okay, we can fix that. Those are a pocket of angry customers.
Right.
We didn't crash the whole thing.
Right. And it's shown a weakness in our system that will be fixed.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay.
We don't have a landline. We don't have a voice over IP. If the dum-dum had pressed the wrong two buttons and it took forever to remember which red button did you push, George, we would have been in trouble.
There is a potential there.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying having a failover system,
right,
is a bad thing. I don't think it is. I do think, however, it more importantly showed that this, which again AT&T should know well,
right,
is that we have moved as a customer base from more traditional phone service. The phone service your grandparents and your great grandparents and potentially back several generations have had towards being a wireless society.
Right.
So when wireless goes down, even if it is only a third of the system in terms of the top 3 providers, not only is that a lot of customers without service at all, that does create a lot of issues across the entire communication spectrum, because you now have a third of your or more. I believe where do they rank up customer wise? I'm just curious. Yeah, so AT&T is actually the largest at 241.5 million subscribers. Which is almost the entirety. Between them, T-Mobile and Verizon have a few more.
Right.
But yeah. So it's more than a third. It's basically right at about 46, 47%, if I'm doing some quick mental math.
Right.
Yeah. Like Verizon and T-Mobile have more than half. But AT&T still has one humongous chunk.
Right.
So it's not just a third, it's more like half the people in the country are inaccessible.
Exactly. Which can be problematic.
Because and I think a lot of people had the sudden realization that they didn't know they were AT&T customers until yesterday.
Yes.
Like it didn't really reflect like, oh, I'm a Cricket customer, it's not going to affect me. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Oh, I'm a, what was, I've already forgotten. Do what now?
Net 10.
Net 10. That's a great one. I'm a Net 10 customer. It doesn't affect me.
Right.
It can.
Yeah.
Because a large chunk because technically Net 10 offers on all three providers.
Right.
You can, depending upon where you live, you may have a choice of all 3 or just one. And typically that one's going to be AT&T. So, no, technically, you're an AT&T customer. You just don't pay AT&T. You're getting reseller services from another company of AT&T.
Right.
Like, it's still AT&T. You're still basically an AT&T customer. You just can't call AT&T customer service and be like, why didn't my phone work? Because they tell you, see, you're not technically our customer. Our customer is Net 10.
Right.
So you get to call Net 10. Which I'm sure Net 10 called AT&T that day.
It was like, what are you doing?
Oh, I'm sure there were some very tense conversations between MVNOs, like Net 10 and Cricket, and the mothership of AT&T going, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
They're down. They're all down. All of them. Every single one of them. All of them. We would hear from more, but they have no phone service.
Yeah. Our line has been ringing off the hook all day for a reason. What have you done?
Well, actually, I think it would be more of a notable moment that our phone has not been ringing. Like, seriously, that's a consideration at a moment in which AT&T services goes down and you're an MVNO. I think your first clue you have a problem
Mm-hmm.
is because your phones aren't ringing.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of you're not getting calls from your subscribers.
Right.
Because they can't place calls.
True.
There's no flatline network. There is no activity.
Right.
The only people that can get through
Right.
are having to borrow a phone
Right.
to call you
Mm-hmm.
to tell you your service is down. That's the gravity and weight of the situation is that they can't even call you to tell you there's a problem.
Yeah.
Because again, most households do not have a landline, and in most households, because AT&T and all the carriers have made it very, very, normalized for everyone in a household to have the same carrier service.
Mm-hmm.
If dad decides to go get AT&T, if mom decides to go get AT&T, then mom has AT&T, dad has AT&T, your kids have AT&T, is typically how that works. Or, different family structures, different, people, same conclusion.
Right.
4 or 5 people all go together, have one carrier.
Right.
So now you're at the, whim of who do we know is on Verizon?
Uh-huh.
Who do we know is on T-Mobile that has service? Because T-Mobile has its moments. We're not going to forget that. Because hi, T-Mobile. We're looking at you.
Yeah, can we have a debate, T-Mobile, on your Christian policies that blocks networks from working for your customers?
Oh, that's adorable. Is that what the whole thing is?
Mm-hmm.
T-Mobile hates your industry?
Yes.
Oh, that's a moment. That's a spicy moment.
Well, it's a spicy moment. It's like Square. Love Square. Wish I could have Square. Can't have Square because they think that I'm calling up the devil when I process their credit card.
Well, there's that. Which for a payment system, if you choose not to support the money, I can follow that. I can even, in instances, understand why perhaps a cellular carrier may have in the past decided that connecting to these numbers was we're not doing it. This eats way too much time disputing billing.
Right.
So we're not even no. Not even going to play that game. We're not going to sit here and listen. Because there was that period of time, and correct me if I'm wrong, because Keen specifically might be different. Was there a period of time in which this was all phone service provider billed?
Not since Ma Bell.
Not since Ma Bell.
Yeah. Until she, when she quit being Ma Bell and had her little children out there. Then now.
Okay. I didn't know if maybe early days they were still doing carrier billing.
No.
Which carrier billing is basically you dial the 900 number.
Right.
Or even some 800 numbers that are then authorized to bill back against the carrier for the service provided.
Right.
So basically they tack the money onto your phone bill. You pay the phone bill. The carrier pays for the charges.
Right.
It was a horrible time. May I point out?
It was a
at least
time, for sure.
Well, but I mean, imagine being one of the carriers during that time. is you're now an intermediary payment gateway,
Right.
for a service that wouldn't ordinarily be able to get a payment gateway. That is a high risk industry with a lot of people wanting to not pay for the charges when they all show up at once on their monthly bill.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, here's the thing, and here's the difference.
Okay.
Um,
Well, and I'm not talking specifically about Keen or about psychic platforms,
right.
but just the whole concept and all the things that included.
Right. But again, that would have to be a landline phone. You cannot do that through cell.
Once upon a time, you could.
No. Never for our services.
Well, specifically, you guys know, but I mean, there were many services that were doing carrier billing
Right.
on postpaid cellular accounts.
Mm-hmm.
So you could call your 1-900 numbers,
mm-hmm.
And as long as you were a postpaid customer, those charges would show up on your bill.
Right. But no, not for us. We were never allowed to do that. For multiple reasons, namely the size of the bill.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nope, sorry. Very few people had that credit limit on their account.
Was also a big part of it. But it was also a big part of why the companies or the carriers
mm-hmm.
didn't want to do this either.
Right.
Is because effectively they were having to write y'all a check for
mm-hmm.
services provided.
Mm-hmm.
And then duke it out with the customer over whether or not it got paid, or a service, any service that used it. Then duke it out with the customer as to whether or not, they were going to raise holy hell over the charges.
Right.
And then try to go back to the companies
mm-hmm.
and be like, customer doesn't want to pay.
Yep.
Customer didn't pay.
Right.
So it was a mess. It was a horrible, and that's what I mean. It was a horrible time.
Right.
It was, and a lot of the companies that did it could not get set up for their own merchant accounts. Their industry was deemed too risky.
Right.
Then enter the scene the third-party payment aggregator.
Well, and
that's
the other
whole
part there is, and this is, what they don't talk about. It's like
mm-hmm.
AT&T was getting a cut of the money.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Apple gets a cut of the money every time you make a purchase in an app. It's $1.50 goes to them.
Right. But it was also why the charges were so high.
Uh-huh.
Because here's the thing. Right now on, Keen, if you start looking through average advisors, y'all are all somewhere between $2.99 a minute.
Right.
And what about $8.99 a minute right now?
We'll go $9.99 for the useful ones. Okay. Anything?
We'll make it a nice even $9.99. We'll make it a nice even $9.99.
Okay.
The realities are, if you look back to the end of the 90s and the early 2000s,
mm-hmm.
Most everything that was a bill to your carrier service
mm-hmm.
was in that price range.
Right.
Between $2.99 a minute and $9.99 a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Which, insane money for the time period. Insane money to think about being billed
mm-hmm.
$2.99 to $9.99
right.
at the end of the 90s, early 2000s.
Right.
I remember watching commercials and you had sex lines, you had all kinds of talk to me nows.
Right.
You name it, every service out there that could get a 900 number.
Mm-hmm.
It needed a 900 number. All their ads,
mm-hmm.
Because there were chat lines for singles. There
were
Well, right, but the sex lines, all of that was somewhere between $2.99.
Mm-hmm.
That was your floor. Rarely ever did you see the 99 cents per minute. That was usually an introductory offer, and that was like your first call, and then you're screwed because the rate was going to jump.
Right.
And then the like, I think the highest I ever saw was $9.99 back then.
$14.99, but that was a special. I can say it here. That was a gay sex line.
Okay, well, again, trying to get to my point now that it's been derailed. Was the fact that back then, 20 some years ago, astronomical rates compared to what people were making and what you would normally expect to see people paying for anything.
Right.
With inflation, that's where most of y'all are working now.
Yeah.
Is this $2.99 to $9.99 range.
Yeah.
Whereas I wonder how many of those services have survived and how inflated those prices are now.
Right.
Because back then it was like, you can't charge that. You can't charge that. No one will pay for that. Because again, I remember seeing like the different commercials, and that was my first thought: is who the hell are you people?
Right.
Who can afford it? I can't. Like, the ones that always got me were like the chat lines for people looking for dates.
Right.
And just the numbers. It's like, okay, I sort of understand the sex chat line. Okay, $9.99 a minute. That's extreme. I could almost get it though.
Right.
But then to turn around and look at like singles chat lines where you're going to set up a voice profile and you're going to scroll, so to speak, scroll through these with your keypad, and listen to them, and then create a message for someone and leave it. Like, I got the concept, but I was like, how many hundreds of dollars could you drop in a night?
$474.
And he knows the answer.
Yes, because we used to be only able to talk an hour and 20 minutes.
Okay. Now, so where was your role in this? Is this, you were looking for love in...
No. The billing, the parameters were the same for the psychic lines as it was for the chat lines. They were all billed the same. Most of them were owned by the same freaking company. A user could only talk 120 minutes.
So at 2 hours, cut it off.
Kill the line.
Yeah.
Yep.
Don't care if they're still actively asking questions and are well aware.
Right.
They've been charged and are happy to pay.
Exactly. They would be they could not process a call until either they called their phone company to make a payment, or it was 24 hours later.
Oh goodness. I wonder though, were customers a little more free-willing when they weren't having to put in the credit card number? As in, like, currently, if you are using a platform service, you basically do a top-up system.
No, not all of them.
Oh, not all of them?
Yeah, if you're a valued customer, with some of them, you have what's called seamless pay.
Okay.
Which basically, you don't get stopped at top-up. It automatically tops up the next, whatever, I think it's 20, 40, 60. Automatically for you.
Okay. But still, it's a top-up system. Right. So either it's a seamless top-up and it just automatically goes and does it. You've given us permission to do it. Or in most cases, you are not that, valuable customer. Well, you are a valuable customer, but you're not that
right
in that class. you get prompted. Do you want to continue this call? If so, you need to add funds.
Right.
Now, for me, I would think that would have a chilling effect as people are realizing, okay, I started this with 5 minutes and paid X dollars. And now I just got the refill prompt. So that's another X dollars.
Mm-hmm.
If I do this again, I just spent.
Right.
Versus I'm having a natural conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And so did the natural conversations and those elite customers that have auto replenishment,
Mm-hmm.
do those calls tend to go longer and move more smoothly versus the customers that are like, one moment, your customer needs to recharge?
Not really. They're about the same.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the ones that are very different is, okay, I'm at $6.99. I know when my customers are adding 20 at a time because we talk for 2 to 3 minutes and then we have to top up again. But,
every once in a while they get a 4.
Yeah.
Woo, we talked for 4 minutes.
Well, no, it's 2 to 3 minutes. Sometimes they get a 4. But it's the same as the old ones. It's just I don't do the bull crap that we used to have to do on the old networks, because on the old, account pay, the first minute was taped and you had to get their name, their birth date, their city and location.
Mm-hmm. And then you really don't want to have them jump into all of the specifics.
Well, no, that's when it's like, okay, so I need you to pick a number for me between 1 and 5. Okay. I'm going to shuffle my cards and you think of your questions. Yes, this is where these techniques come from that a lot of psychics that
run out the first minute so that the recording stops.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Actually, let's do this. See if I still remember the script. You're a customer. Ring, ring. Hi, this is Aeson, extension 4210. Who am I speaking with tonight?
Techy Joe.
Techy Joe, how interesting. Technology is one of my fun things, too. So, Techy, what's your birth date?
7/2 of a year I'm not saying here.
Okay. And Techy, where are you calling me from?
Oak Hill, West Virginia.
Have you ever had a psychic reading before?
Well, no.
Do you have a pen and paper ready to take down some notes? If not, I can wait.
No, I'm ready.
Wonderful.
Sure that would alone run out the minute right there.
Nope, we're still within 22 seconds.
Oh, goody.
So, Techy, will you please go ahead and choose me a number between 1 and 10 so I can begin shuffling the mystical tarot cards for you?
11.
Between 1 and 10, Techy.
9.
All right, so I'm going to shuffle them and you think about your question. Hear how loud I'm shuffling?
Yes.
And it's not because I'd have to shuffle that loud. It's so that the customer hears that. There, that's when the recording would stop at 4.
It's like, all right. Thunk, 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 thunk. All right, so what do you want to know?
All right. Well, then it was, okay, so I've shuffled 11 times. I'm going to cut the cards into 3 stacks. Which stack would you like me to read from?
Oh, no, we're not continuing this.
Oh, come on.
All right, fine. Number 2.
All right, so we're going to choose the middle one then. And we'll put the others onto the side. Let's see. All right, so first I like to do a general reading. Oh, it's interesting. You have a lot of goals and ambitions while you're having to balance your finances. You have a message coming for you that'll be very profitable and very good for you. You have a strong sense of justice with your Cancer self, but you've got to watch not to overload yourself because that leads to heartache a lot of times. Now, with that, Techie, what would your question be tonight? Because I figure we're probably going to go love and relationship, aren't we?
Oh, dear Lord.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that almost needs to be recorded out as the, like, what happens when Aeson doesn't do quick readings. He could be here all night at $6.99 a minute.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. I was an elite master psychic. My rate at that time in 1999 was $8.75 a minute.
Aww.
And I made a whole 78 cents a minute.
Oh, goodness. Meanwhile, $8.75 a minute.
Mm-hmm.
That first minute you have paid for nothing. $8.75 gone.
Yep.
Like, God forbid you drop the call at this point and call back, because that's another $8.75. Just
right.
Because I'm sure the beginning of every call is identical at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So $8.75 immediately gone, dead, bye.
Yep. By every customer. Every night, every call. I don't care if I talked to you 5 minutes ago. You have to go through the verification process again.
Yes. And get off tape.
Yes.
Because again, I mean, and that's not really about playing any games. That's literally, do you want this reading?
Right.
Or any part thereof recorded.
Right.
Like, we recorded the thing that we have to do.
Right.
For, billing purposes.
Mm-hmm. Twice.
That you're a legal adult.
Mm-hmm.
You are not, obviously inebriated or incapacitated. Like, you're a competent adult.
Mm-hmm.
You're not a child.
Mm-hmm.
You've given me adult information, as in you've stated yourself as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to, I'm not hearing someone who sounds like a child.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's truly more about the first minute.
Right.
That even though it may sound not all that great when you think about trying to do that with someone who's a child, they're going to struggle.
Right.
Or if you're too inebriated, my 11 probably would have had you going, is he drunk or stupid?
Well, no, that was very common. But on the other side,
but the ability to retake the information,
right, because
and be like, oh, right, okay,
yeah, because that information had to, you had to go through a whole process when you got to the operator. Then when you were transferred to me, you went through it again.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing is I didn't get your phone number. The operator asked for the phone number, and it had to match the caller ID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get that one. I'm just sitting there going, no, that's a double verification system.
Yep.
And that first minute would have been unpaid, correct?
No, that's paid.
I mean, the first, because you've now done this twice.
Mm-hmm.
Your minute's paid.
Uh-huh.
I'm assuming the 1 minute with the operator is unpaid. Like the meter starts when they connect to you.
It's supposed to be.
Oh, oopsies.
Oopsies. This leads into what really happened with the Miss Cleo incident.
Mm-hmm.
Because
that's
because that first minute is supposed to be verifying on the account.
Mm-hmm.
Then they would be put on hold, which they were never to be on hold. This
Well,
is back
but
in the day
one way or another, to transfer someone, the first step is put them on hold.
it's supposed to be a live transfer.
Okay.
It wasn't. They put them on hold. They did not transfer them over to Virginia because Virginia didn't have a phone.
Oopsies.
Yeah. The process was they would verify with the operator. They would be instantly transferred to the agent. The agent would then re-verify them and then begin the call. When they were the transfer initiates the charge clock.
Mm-hmm. But if you put them on hold,
it initiates the charge clock.
Oops.
Yeah.
Because it was never supposed to happen.
Right.
It just wasn't.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if it was maybe supposed to happen in situations where, like, if a customer abandons the call but doesn't hang up.
That's the other thing, and this is the thing that's still in fact today the thing. If a customer does not talk for a minute, you have to disconnect the call.
Uh-huh.
The system should have dropped them. They didn't.
Because it wasn't supposed to ever happen.
Yeah.
So it sounds like they actually didn't program it. They just timed it and said, cut off the first minute.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, we don't charge you for the first minute because the first minute is going to be getting your credit card information.
Right. Well,
or setting up your account, doing the verification, talking to you, figuring out if you're an adult at the account level.
Right.
Account level.
Right.
And then by the second minute, we've handed you to an advisor.
Right. And, doing QA during that time was quite interesting. Because you would have to QA the whole call.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. Because you could be fired if you did not give your extension at the beginning of the call.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
but it's some levels, though, once you get the hang of it.
Yeah. But, what's funny, and I laugh about it today, is that fires still do this. The whole fucking process.
Well, at some levels, the number of you that not only came from the environment in which this was required,
right,
but then created a next generation,
right,
that then created a next generation.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally, why does mom cut the ends off the roast?
Right.
Because the pan's too damn small.
Right.
That's it. There's no great mystery here. But when you're looking at it as, say, a third generation trained advisor,
right,
who's still doing this,
right,
why are you doing this? Oh no, that's how I was trained. Okay, back up to the trainer. Why are you training him to do this? I don't know, it's how I was trained. Back up one more level.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here's why we do that.
So there's this little thing called fair play, fair action, and you have to verify the situation, and you have to verify the user, and and that's how, like, Sandy, love her to death, but she keeps giving her extension.
Mm-hmm.
I
don't think for some of y'all you're gonna ever jerk it out.
I know.
Like, it's a built-in process.
Yeah.
You're going to do it forever. And thankfully it's only a few digits.
Right.
So I'm sure she's doing a hi, this is Sandy at extension, blah, 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 blah. How are you today?
Right.
You're not going to jerk that out of her mouth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised you're not still doing it after this many years.
I hated it. I hate wasting that first minute of time when I have time to connect with my customer and get this over with.
And get this over with.
Yes.
Well, that doesn't sound the most customer servicey.
Okay, this has always been my theory in business. I can either service 5 customers in a night
Mm-hmm.
and make $100, or I can service 50 customers and make $1,500.
Yeah. And actually
Right.
spend your time focusing on what they want. No, I get that. I was just commenting on the let's get this over with. I know that's not your actual mentality as much as it's the what do you want to know?
Right.
Like, let's just get to it. Not
Right.
get it over with, but let's just get to it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to know?
Yeah.
Like, let's not beat around the bush. Don't sit here and try to figure out how to delicately tell me stuff because I've been here too long for that. The things I have heard. So you're not going to pop anything too new on me.
Right.
Unless you are way out there. But as long as you're within the pretty standard boxes,
mm-hmm.
you know, and it's legal.
Yep.
Hit me with it.
Right. And that I can advise you on, because those are very tight, and they're getting tighter areas.
Like, you're a gay lunar who enjoys, you know, some heavy bondage and mommy play. Okay, let's go.
Yep.
What do you want to know about your next upcoming, you know, whatever
encounter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you going to find the man for you? Like, because that seems to sometimes be where the issue is.
Yeah.
Is there's I'm into this really odd thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like I'm going to find someone.
Right.
So one, I need reassurance you're not just blowing smoke up my ass and telling me, oh, you sound like such a really great person. I'm sure you'll find someone. So let me tell you that's going to be in 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Versus you have a very specific situation which you are looking for a much smaller proportion of the population than your average, like...
Right.
Well, granted, that gets into the whole concept of, is anyone average?
No one's average, everyone's normal.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So let's move into why, AI will not be taking my job from me.
So, from my theories on AT&T to Air Canada. All right. So Air Canada got sued recently, and there's a judgment in that case. It's a fun one. So Air Canada must honor refund policy invented by airlines chatbot. So basically, Air Canada had a lovely chat support agent, which was entirely AI driven. And this customer connected with the chatbot to find out information about bereavement travel. They just recently had a relative die. They needed to fly because of this. And so they elected to use the chatbot, this AI-driven tool that Air Canada put on its website. With the goal of, and at that point had totally replaced all of its chat agents, with the goal of in future replacing all its agents.
Right.
But no, in this particular instance, Air Canada's policy is that you have to get approved for bereavement travel discounting before the fare is booked. The chatbot decided you can just go ahead and travel now and get reimbursement later. We'll retroactively apply the bereavement travel
discount.
Yeah. So but here's a link to our full bereavement policy. Now all this becomes becomes important in a minute. So the customer travels for their bereavement event, returns home, and tries to start the process for reimbursement. only to hit the snag that that's not Air Canada's policy.
Mm-hmm.
We're sorry. Thank you. Have a great day. Sorry for your luck, but we don't do retroactive approvals for bereavement travel.
Right.
Well, thankfully, this passenger slash customer screenshotted the event
Mm-hmm.
of what the chatbot said.
Right.
That turned into suing them
Mm-hmm.
over their lack of desire to honor what the chatbot said. Now, where it gets interesting, Air Canada tried to trot out a novel legal defense
Mm-hmm.
that the chatbot didn't work for them. I mean, obviously, in this situation, it didn't work for them. It didn't work right. But they literally in court tried to claim
Mm-hmm.
the chatbot is totally separate and independent from Air Canada. We have no control over it. It doesn't work for us. So the customer should know that this AI has nothing to do with Air Canada. And the court basically looked at them and said, are you on something? Because I don't care that it's a chatbot.
Mm-hmm.
I understand what a chatbot is. It's an agent
Mm-hmm.
of your company.
Mm-hmm.
And as an agent of your company, it gave a customer wrong information
Mm-hmm.
that you're liable for. So the customer just got a refund of their travel, court costs, and I think a little bit of damages.
Good.
Basically the fees and stuff for bringing the action, as well as interest on the unreimbursed airfare. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now this gets even more fun, is because after this decision, Air Canada has stripped the chatbot out of its website.
Right.
Kind of interesting, kind of
Mm-hmm.
a little bit insane.
Right.
Because at this stage for Air Canada, they have invested more money into this AI
Mm-hmm.
than it would have cost them to continue their human support services.
Right.
Like they sunk an entire treasure chest
Mm-hmm.
into this technology.
Right.
And have now ripped it out of their website.
Yeah, and probably killed their developers.
Well, no, I think honestly, Air Canada sincerely believed that this novel legal defense
Mm-hmm.
that they were going to make customers happy and not be responsible for it.
Right.
And if anything goes wrong, it's the chatbot.
Yeah.
Not Air Canada's fault.
Mm-hmm.
Now there are instances in which companies can, and Air Canada could have, actually been correct in this.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes down to a little bit of phrasing.
Right.
And basically what would need to have happened was to add to every message, or to every chat session,
Mm-hmm.
that we are not responsible for what the chatbot tells you. Please verify all links supplied, and if there's any doubt, please check our website for further and more accurate detail.
Mm-hmm.
Basically said the chatbot might be crazy,
Right.
So we're going to always refer you back to the website.
Right.
And because you said the word bereavement, here's the link to bereavement.
Right.
But otherwise, this is the nice human sounding
Right.
chatbot response to your question.
Right.
Like it's now a search engine.
Right.
And it's not even AI at that point. It's keyword connected.
Right.
You use bereavement, death, emergency, whatever. We're going to kick you links to this policy.
Right.
Which is still kind of sad.
Mm-hmm.
But literally everything they would have had to have done, and they would have won this lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
But because they didn't say that, that was their technical losing issue.
Right.
Meanwhile, may I reiterate, they have now ripped this out of their website.
Well, I was looking to see if it was hidden somewhere, and no, it's gone.
Oh, yeah, it's gone.
Yeah.
Gone. Now, I don't know what this cost for Air Canada on their side of
Right.
total expenses. But this is a whole case with a total resolution that was a partial refund of $650.88 in Canadian dollars off the original fare, so about $482 off the fare. That was $1,640 and 36 cents Canadian, or about $1,216 US. As well as the damages and interest, which consisted of interest on the airfare, and this was actually, because it was Canada, tribunal.
Right.
So yeah, realistically, we're potentially looking at, I don't know, a couple $1,000s for one customer. That's it. That's all, like, in the entirety of the span that the chatbot was working. It appears this is one case in which the chatbot failed.
Right.
Pretty badly.
Right.
Not horrifically, but it created policies that didn't exist.
Right.
Which, I mean, I think that would probably be a more fair policy.
Right.
But, that's just me. I think sometimes the AI got it right and the company gets it wrong.
Right.
But again, we're all told in exposure, looking at a couple of $1,000s, if they covered it in the beginning, simply $482 would have been the total exposure. That's it. Like $482 US dollars, $650 some dollars in Canadian. And okay, we'll learn our lesson. Like, you're right. Like, we see what happened here. But this is really, while the story is mostly about the AI failing,
right,
and the fact that Air Canada has ripped it out, I think there's the bigger story here of how far companies are now going to get out of dealing with customers, especially when customers want money.
Right.
So it starts at, we don't even want to talk to you. We just want you to spend your money with us.
Right.
So here's a chat bot.
Right.
And then when that's screwed up, we still don't want to deal with you or do anything to correct the situation.
Right.
We will keep all the money.
Right.
So you can't handle me on the front end when I'm, someone who has just suffered a loss of a family member, or an impending loss of a family member.
All right.
And then when you screw up, you still don't want to deal with me.
Right.
And I think that's the bigger lesson to learn, is the more we try to not deal with customers, the more expensive it gets.
Yeah.
You don't save money by not talking to people.
Well, you don't save money in general by not talking to people. Especially when, right now customer service is important because it creates brand loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Yeah.
We shop at places I can walk in and I can see, and talk to someone that I've been, possibly going to school with.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I know the sales clerks.
Well, it's a community function.
Yeah.
It's a function of community. And it's this idea that in business we're going to make more money with self-checkouts,
Right. Which are
with chat bots, with automation, with all the things. And it's not entirely untrue
mm-hmm.
that you're going to, in that limited case situation,
Mm-hmm.
are potentially going to make more money.
Mm-hmm.
If you had the basic understanding
Mm-hmm.
correct of what the actual interaction is.
Right.
And I think that's the problem with a lot of businesses is the misunderstanding of it's not all about you.
Right.
Because it isn't. But when you see businesses try to automate or try to do the robo replace, the chatbots, the self-checkouts, the whatever,
Right.
most of what we see is this idea of we're going to quit paying humans to do this thing that's very monkey routine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do it again, keep doing it all day long without understanding that there's more to it than that.
Right.
That there's a lot more that goes into that. That having a human agent interacting in Air Canada's specific situation with a potentially distraught customer and getting the bereavement situation handled correctly the first time,
right,
with a distraught customer,
right,
that you can quickly and easily handle, while also offering, Air Canada sympathies for your loss,
right,
and being able to, I don't know, maybe smack a couple more buttons on the keyboard
mm-hmm.
and say, going to see sick mother,
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the situation is, just
Right.
smack the buttons,
Right.
And maybe make that a slightly nicer flight.
Right.
Let that have a couple of little markings that point out that you might want to, like, I don't know, throw an extra bag of peanuts at her.
Or
just upgrade, if you have an upgrade available.
right.
Not a real good candidate for the emergency exit row.
No.
Might be worth an extra blankie.
Right.
Keep the tissues handy.
Right.
You know what I mean? Again, this is things that take skill learned over time that you don't necessarily teach, because that's not necessarily part of the business. That's part of the humans in the business.
Right.
Like, those are things I'm just thinking off the top of my head, that if I'm the agent,
mm-hmm.
the human agent that you call and talk to when you need to talk about bereavement travel,
mm-hmm.
then I'm going to start it. I'm so sorry for your loss. Let's see how we can, get you there as quickly and, easily as possible.
Right.
And then, I'm going to smack a couple extra buttons with that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you're bereavement traveling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a very human experience, and it takes a large emotional toll.
Right.
So anything I can smack on a keyboard,
right,
might get you a couple extra dollars.
Mm-hmm.
I know is going to turn around and make this a more pleasurable travel experience for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that when people ask, how did you get here today?
Right.
Oh, I called Air Canada. They were amazing.
Right.
Now try to turn that into a number. try to turn that sentence from your cousin, from your, sister, from your friend into a number.
Right.
Is that gonna be like, who's the sister, who's the cousin, who's the friend? Are they're gonna remember this experience, because the alternative is you better believe everybody done heard about Air Canada's chatbot fuck up in that family.
Well, and Gary Vaynerchuk has a book called The Thank You Economy. And if you're in business, read it. Shut up and read it.
Okay.
It lays all this CS stuff out, and it's simple stuff.
But it isn't. That's the funny part. Good customer service is worth its weight in gold. It's a mindset. It's you can't script it.
Right.
You can't script personal interaction. You can't script how to touch people.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not like that. Not emotionally bond with them.
Right.
You can't script it into systems.
Right.
You know what I mean? You cheapen it and you end up doing it wrong.
Right.
Because alternatively, again, back to that same customer service role as the bereavement, contact for Air Canada. I may get someone on the phone that goes, the stupid bitch finally fucking died. I have to go to my mother's fucking funeral. Okay, well, I'm not going to smack as many buttons on my keyboard. I am sorry for your loss, but it sounds like that's was an acrimonious situation.
Right.
So I'm not going to waste a lot of effort giving you saccharine condolences. I'm going to go, well, I'm so sorry to hear for your loss. Let's go ahead and see what we can do to get you there today.
Right. But
I'm not going to smack all the extra buttons.
And the Thank You Economy by Gary Vaynerchuk is a lovely book. It will, and yes, not system, but processes. The processes of things work a lot better.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that, and also, but when you pair it with really good customer service people.
Right.
Because that is a skill set that more so comes naturally. Like somebody, you can learn it. You can learn to think in a customer service mindset.
Right.
But you can't script it.
Right.
Like, it's got to remain organic.
Well, true.
Like, it is an organic function to be able to weight that properly.
Right.
To take in what someone's saying. And that's sometimes the biggest problem with our more like AI, robotic, and scripted interactions, is they assume a case scenario that isn't going to apply to everyone.
Right. All right. So, you've heard me bitch and moan and complain about them. Now we see what the actual effects of them are. Oklahoma's banned trans students from bathrooms. Now we have a dead student on your hands.
Oh, yes. So Next Benedict died one day after a fight in a school bathroom. Their mother, Sue Benedict, tells Bevan Hurley that the gender-fluid teenager endured more than a year of abuse simply for being who they were. So yeah, whenever Oklahoma teenager Next Benedict was bullied at school for being transgender, their mother, Sue Benedict, would encourage the 16-year-old to rise above their tormentors. I've said you've got to be strong and look the other way because these people don't know who you are, Miss Benedict told The Independent in a phone interview. I didn't know how bad it had gotten. The bullying had started in earnest at the beginning of the 2023 school year, a few months after Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt signed a bill that required public school students to use bathrooms that matched the sex listed on their birth certificates. A few weeks ago, on February 7th, the bullying allegedly erupted in violence when Next suffered severe head injuries during a physical altercation at Owasso High School, according to the Owasso Police Department. Sue Benedict told the Independent she was called to the school that day to find Nex badly beaten with bruises over their face and eyes and with scratches on the back of their head. Nex told her that they and another transgender student at Owasso High School had been in a fight with 3 older girls in a girls' bathroom. Nex was knocked to the ground during the fight and hit their head on the floor, according to their mother. Miss Benedict said she was furious the school had failed to call an ambulance or the police. She says the school then informed her Nex was being suspended for 2 weeks. She took Nex to the Bailey Medical Center in Owasso for treatment. They spoke to a police school resource officer at the medical facility and were discharged. That night, Nex went to bed with a sore head and eventually fell asleep while listening to music, Miss Benedict said. On the afternoon of February 8th, Nex was getting ready to go to Tulsa with Miss Benedict for an appointment when they collapsed in the family living room. Miss Benedict called an ambulance and a Owasso Fire Department medics arrived to find Nex had stopped breathing. Nex was taken to the St. Francis Pediatric Emergency Room, where they were later declared dead.
All right.
Oh, like if anything else could go wrong, it went wrong.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah, and the reports they're getting out is bullshit. We don't have a toxicology report back. Oh, it was, not injuries. Really head injuries? Well, concussions are deadly.
Well, I think that this is a situation where school and police are trying to rely on medical personnel's decision to discharge them,
right,
as being indicative that the whatever injuries were sustained were only superficial.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if they had called 911
mm-hmm.
or the equivalent thereof, that there wouldn't have been any different outcome. So it must not be the injuries.
Right.
It could be, or even if it was the injuries, then the medical professionals would have still missed them.
Right.
But then you have the medical side of it, which is trying to claim the medical injury. There were not significant medical injuries to cause this, so it must be something they chose to do.
Mm-hmm. Really?
Or at least therein lies the argument.
Right. Now, the GoFundMe.
I think even if it is true, though, I think that far distances people from the connection between, consistent, repetitive, severe bullying that is continuing to escalate and grow worse, and the idea that a teen suffering this,
right,
would find their own logic in unaliving themselves. Not that I'm saying that is the right choice, not that I'm saying that is what you want to do, not that I'm saying, but that's a direct line connection. That's not, these things happened. For totally unconnected to that, they made this choice.
See, and this, I think every government official that voted for that damn bill should be served with court papers.
Absolutely.
Point blank.
Well, I think more so to the point is the reality is that this isn't doing what you think it's doing. The problem was not the problem you thought it was.
Right.
But you made it the problem.
Right.
Like, your problem was the idea that there were men in the women's room and women in the men's room. Not how that works.
Right.
What there were women in the women's room and men in the men's room. And then you jerk them into their birth certificate declared sex restrooms. And at that point, you now have created the situation that you were so fearful of.
Yeah.
Because that's sort of how that works out.
Yeah.
Like this idea you had of a woman in a dress or a man in a dress. And, you know, that wasn't what was happening.
Right.
Now, on a biological level, was that what occurred? Yes. Was that what was happening? No. Far from it.
Right.
Far from it.
And I'm just so, like, this is what I don't get. Starbucks has 2 to 4 bathrooms depending on the size of the Starbucks. All of them are gender neutral, single occupancy. We have a school building that has multiple bathrooms, including special bathrooms for staff, handicapped equipped bathrooms, everything else. You're telling me that you can't make them single use?
Ideally, it is not conducive to a really broken bathroom use model in education, which is this idea that you're going to turn loose at periodic intervals every single student in the building at once, and somehow in that time of 3 to 5 minutes, all of them are going to be able to get from the class they were in or wherever their starting point is to the next class they need to be at or wherever their destination is, and take care of any bathroom needs.
Right.
Which was an insane concept and didn't matter how big the bathrooms were.
Right, but if
you're never going to be able to do this.
If this is such a problem, then fine, get rid of the big bathrooms, turn them into mini bathrooms with locking doors. If this is such a problem.
But again, this is the broken model that we're not going to actually address the needs of students.
Right.
Because if you really want to back up the bathroom bill problem, it fundamentally gets into, unless we put a monitor in every single bathroom, then students are going to be at risk in bathrooms. It's why, like, smoking in the boys' room was a thing, and still is. Vaping in the boys' room now, I'm sure, or the girls' room, whatever.
No, have class. Go out behind the driver's ed building.
Well, no, that's a full skip. You're trying to get a couple of puffs in between classes.
Again, go out behind.
That's all you got time for. You're not finishing it.
But short cigarettes.
Well, but the whole issue being, yes,
we have a dead child now because of this Christian right bullshit. That's where the issue is.
Well, I was going to point out some of the biggest issue to this is that while the bathroom situation is being taken out on trans students, the fact that this is an issue has everything to do with how we handle student needs like bathroom in an educational environment, and literally try to run these kids through like they're cattle in an impossible situation that is therefore also impossible to monitor, that then led to this being a problem, because it's been a problem across every targeted group. It doesn't matter. This is the trans is today's version of gay kids getting bullied in the bathroom. Years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, it was the nerdy kid bullied in the bathroom. Because everyone has to pee. At some point, you got to go in the bathroom. And when you enter that bathroom on any school campus in America, you are doing it at your own peril.
Mm-hmm.
It's a blind spot in the entire building. Because you can't put cameras in there. That's illegal on multiple levels. Most schools, if not all schools, do not have the resources to monitor their bathrooms. And quite frankly, they don't want the responsibility for what goes on in there.
Right.
The kids know all of this or figure it out. And that's where your bullying occurs. Especially your most violent versions of it. It's not in the hallways, it's not the classrooms, it's the bathroom.
Right.
But yes, it is a horrible bill, and it unfortunately targets the wrong persons
Mm-hmm.
in a situation that is far more complex.
Right.
To me, at least. It's far more complex than just gender. And gender assigned at birth, or gender as chosen, or however one wants to word it, it goes beyond that.
Right.
Like the way that we are treating our kids and our lack of appreciation for their needs,
Mm-hmm.
and this enforced idea that you're supposed to handle all this between classes.
Mm-hmm.
That sets a stage for these events to occur.
Right. It doesn't really help that the school board for this county brought in someone from California and put them on the school board to create and organize the policies here.
Is this after the event or before the event?
Before the event.
Ooh.
Never set foot in the schools, never knew the kids, and I had no knowledge of the children. Had real knowledge of bullshit science.
Oh, good. That's always useful when you're creating bullshit policy.
Yeah.
That is expertise.
Yeah. Junk science, like, well, if you force them to hold their, biblical idealism and, give them a code of conduct that's based on biblical principles. Literally. That was the quote.
Okay, great. Oh, so basically you gave all these kids a free pass to beat up trans students.
Yes.
Okay. And then unsurprisingly, in the biggest blind spot in the building, occurred the worst possible scenario that anyone could have predicted. That if it doesn't happen today, it's going to happen tomorrow, and if it doesn't happen tomorrow, it's going to happen the next day.
Right.
It's not a question of if.
Mm-hmm.
It's a question of when.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm sure many of the teachers were sitting there going, "This is going to end horrifically."
Right.
And it's just a question of which one of my students.
Mm-hmm.
When.
Right.
And all we are professionally allowed to do is sit and wait and watch.
Right.
Try to keep it from happening. Try to give them, support and information they need. And what am I supposed to do? Tell them just don't use the bathroom? Like, I imagine it's got to be really hard as an ally teacher
Mm-hmm.
in this situation to go, you have now created an inevitable
Right.
disaster
Right.
that I just have to wait for.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I can do. I can sit here and I can yell and I can scream and I can fight and petition and protest and I can do all the things. You're not going to listen
Right.
until it happens.
Right.
And then puts professionals in the position of, I don't want the students to get harmed, so I'm going to try to give them whatever I can,
Right.
in terms of ways to avoid the situation that I know is inevitably going to happen regardless of what they do.
Right.
I professionally, that's got to be such just like a fucky mind moment.
Right. And, I'm at the point now, and, normally I'm not an idealism of homeschool. But at this point, pull your kids out. The moment they change gender, get them out.
I'll add to the list. And point blank say it's a serious consideration to homeschool.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't say it lightly that if you're that for their safety, and I sincerely mean this,
Right.
it is worth serious consideration.
Yeah.
If your child identifies as trans, with a non-heterosexual sexual orientation, if your child is obese, if your child has any major medical condition,
right.
I again, it's a very serious consideration.
Right.
It shouldn't be your jump to nuclear option. It
right.
shouldn't be something you do willy-nilly.
Mm-hmm.
But when we look at bullying,
mm-hmm.
there are predictable targeted groups,
right?
And quite frankly, it creates a de facto separate but equal,
mm-hmm.
and that's not fair, and it's horrible, and it's shitty. It's almost a moment, though, that I think if I were a parent,
mm-hmm.
I would have to question, do I want a living discriminated against child, or do I want a dead child who had equal opportunities?
Right.
Because that's basically what's playing out in these schools, is trying to work out the fairness with a dead body count.
Right.
Like, at what point does it all become equal?
Right.
How many dead students does it take before we get it, we fix it, we got it, and we move forward? And we've seen this, and again, we have seen this across gender identity, sexual orientation, weight, race, religion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just keep sliding through history. At what point do you eventually have to question, does it make more sense to actively participate in the discrimination
mm-hmm.
by homeschooling, creating a separate but equal for your child,
mm-hmm.
knowing that's what you just did,
right?
Because it's what you did,
right?
You signed up, sign me up for the discrimination, I guess,
right?
Because that would be the way I would take it. This is supposed to be a free public education for all. But what you're telling me, what I'm seeing, is that if I send a child like this
mm-hmm.
to public school,
mm-hmm.
I'm basically playing with Russian roulette with their life.
Right.
So do I choose to play the Russian roulette, or do I choose the separate but equal?
Right. And I think that's where we got to head to, at least until we get enough teachers and enough funding within the community to start our own schools.
Mm-hmm. Granted, there's a big push for charter programs.
I know.
But those are usually religion-centric.
Right.
And typically Christian. And not the kind, fuzzy, warm, friendly Christian, but the hate all the same people we do Christian.
Right. But again, pull them out. Pull the 1940s stunt that a lot of African Americans did. Pull them out, teach them at home, make them. That's why we have a GED. GED their butt and send them right into Harvard.
Did not know that was the basis of the GED program.
Mm-hmm.
Good deal.
Good deal. All right, so we heard from a ghost from the past. Some of it gave us nightmares. Some of it, I'm sure, gave you warm fuzzies, depending on you were interacting with this character. Take it away.
You know? Or whether you were interacting with them as a child or as an adult.
Yes.
Oh, so in one word, we will figure out what you are. Barney makes first public statement in 14 years. You are seen, you are special, you are loved. Oh, so yes, Barney the dinosaur is speaking publicly for the first time since his show, Barney and Friends, ended on PBS 14 years ago. In a special Valentine's Day message, Barney spoke to fans both young and old to remind them how loved they are. The message was posted on Barney's official Instagram account on Wednesday. Here is Barney's full message. Hi, friends. It's me, Barney. I haven't seen some of you in a long time, but I always make sure to check in on my friends. And it seems like maybe we could all use a little reminder right now, a reminder of the super de-duper ability we all have to love one another and how important it is to show love towards yourself too. After a long day on the playground of life, I want you to know you are seen, you are special, you are loved. Isn't it nice how some things are still true even when you're all grown up? Well, friends, it's been stupendous to see you all, and I have a feeling I'll be seeing you again soon. Oh, hard not to do the Barney voice while you read the Barney message. Sorry, guys, if I slipped into it. But yes. So there is apparently a reference being made with that last comment that an animated Barney series should be debuting in 2024.
That would be interesting. He also might be referring to a live action film starring Daniel, we're not saying the last name, that was announced in 2019, but has yet to have release dates. Mm-hmm. An interview with the New Yorker, Mattel Films. Sorry, you have to take
Mattel.
over.
Yeah, Mattel Films executive Kevin McKinnon said the movie will be geared towards adults. We're leaning into the millennial angst of the property rather than fine-tuning this for kids. It's really a play for adults. McKinnon told the New Yorker in July, not that it's R-rated, but it'll focus on some of the trials and tribulations of being 30-something, growing up with Barney, just the level of disenfranchisement within the generation. Both the animated series and the live-action film are part of a Barney franchise relaunch that Mattel announced last February. Oh, you forgot your elder millennials in that one. Some of us are still traumatized.
Right.
But yeah, there's a... like, we get it. But yeah.
I have scars.
Speaking of scars, Brenda says goddaughter would have mama call me so she could sing that song. I hate Barney. She still sings it to me. I understand I understand. It's not that, and let me clarify. It's not. It's not that we're uncool with the Barney message. We're cool with the Barney message. We really are. But there is a point with children where they obsessively watch things, and Barney being one of them.
Well, things.
And it just.
There's Barney
Oh.
and there's Toy Story. Specifically, Toy Story 2.
Now, the Toy Story movies did have around the era that they started introducing adult humor overlaying the children's show. It wasn't great, I know. The master of it was SpongeBob. That was a show you could let any small child watch, and none of the adult humor was going to seep in. And the adults would watch it, and you would hear two different laughs. To the adult humor, to the child humor. The kids are looking at the adults going, "What's so funny?" You'll understand in a few years.
See, SpongeBob came from the Russian takeover of America.
Okay.
Toy Story came from Scandinavia, an attempt to drive me insane. And Barney just added a layer of BDSM to it.
Yeah. And again, it's not that we're against the message. Barney is a lovely, lovely character. We appreciate the Barney. Really, we do. But there's that obsession thing that children have for their favorites. And if that kid was into Barney, I will tell you right now, the number of times you have heard the songs, seen the episodes, you can sit there and mouth along the dialogues. And there is a way that we speak to children that is not the same as how we speak to adults.
Right.
And it is a much slower, deliberate, inquisitive way that can really grate after 2, 3, 6, 8 hours of non-stop repeat.
I wonder how many divorces occurred from "I love you, you love me."
I don't know. That's the best question to ask. I'm sure there was a lot of resentment, like, you started this shit. Definitely that. I know one parent has looked at the other at some point in their kid's Barney childhood and been like, "You're the one to blame for this." I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. I'm pretty sure because I looked at one of my sister-in-laws and said that. Because I hit my limit. Because I had nieces that were in that age range of Barney obsessed. And there's a point where you look at the parents and go, "Which one of you?" Which one of you? Because I want to know who to blame.
You see, I go past that level. I see a level of red. I hope he does come back. I think it'll be interesting, and if I can stomach enough vodka, I'll watch it.
Oh,
I just wish they'd leave our childhood alone. I do not need to see the Barbie movie. I have enough dream houses in my mind. I just bought one.
Well, granted, the Barbie movie is actually supposed to be an adult comedy.
Does she shoot Ken?
I don't know. I think a lot of things happen in that movie, but I'm not like, I can't.
Okay.
Like, I've seen the previews and I'm like, no.
Right.
No, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
Right.
Though I think it is a movie that if you are Barbie obsessed, it really, I think, tends to piss off the Barbie people.
Right.
So I don't know what the hell Mattel is thinking. Coming for Barney after they just, because the Barbie movie is currently a love it, hate it.
Right.
You are either all in or all out.
Yes.
And that they're going to try to do an adult targeted Barney movie is an interesting life choice on the heels of the Barbie movie.
Well, they're going to do a lot of them. Now, guys, unfortunately, you need to take a break. So we will be back in just a second.
Yes.
This song's for the winners, never giving up, never giving in when life gets tough. This song's for the soldiers, never call it quits. Live for the challenge, they can never get enough of this. Song's for the winners, never giving up, never giving in when life gets tough. This song's for the soldiers, never call it quits. Live for the challenge, they can never get enough of this. Once upon a time we were dreaming, now we're on the come up, steady scheming. We ain't got a lot, but you know we believe in what we feel in our hearts as we reach for the ceiling. They all just frowned and shook their heads. I know that.
All right, we're back. Hope you got a refill on your coffee.
Do what now?
Well, that's the whole point of a break, is to get a refill on coffee.
It is. Got to get more coffee.
Right.
All right.
So
we're ready to wrap this up with Am I the Asshole?
Well, yes. Let's go into Are You the Asshole?
All right. Am I the asshole for being upset after my guidance counselor breached my privacy? My guidance counselor, we'll call her GC, made a phone call home in front of another student. I, 13 female, got a referral for saying fuck you to my guidance counselor. My guidance counselor then proceeded to make a call home. This call included information about my behavioral problems, psychiatric issues, and information about the bullying going on. The student that was in the room was a good friend. We'll call her MF. MF sent me a voice message including the information GC was speaking about. It was a voice message the whole phone call home to my father. MF is very confrontational, and I did not want her to know what was going on. I also never wanted her to know about my psychiatric issues and my medication, nor did I want her to know about my behavioral issues. I'm very uncomfortable and quite frankly upset and concerned about how easily my information was disclosed. This was not the first time GC has done something like that. My court paperwork about my trauma was displayed on her desk where everyone could see it at one point. She often displays paperwork about students on her desk and doesn't move it when students come in. She told me to hand her a paper, and I accidentally grabbed my friend's psychiatric paperwork about his psychiatric ward stay. She also pulls up students' information, including grades, age, birthday, address, parents' full name, parents' phone number, classes, and IEP/504 plans. I'm now very uncomfortable with speaking to her about anything, and I genuinely need help. After seeing what she said, I went into her office disturbed and hysterically crying about the information she disclosed about me. I need to know two things. Am I in the wrong for being upset? And is it illegal to do those things?
Well, I answer one question and we'll put the other one up to poll. Yes, this is illegal. This is a violation of the HIPAA rights. And your privacy. She is at fault and should be fired. Is she an asshole for being upset about it?
Oh God, no.
No. But the poll's gone up.
All right.
So while we're discussing this poll and the poll going up, let's go ahead and take care of relationship bias.
Oh, okay. So polyamory, comparison, jealousy, communication issues with long-term partner. Hi there, long-time lurker, second-time poster, looking for advice. Apologies in advance for the ramble. I think part of this is just getting it out too. So is this. I, 35, am married with my nesting partner, 38, of 10 and a half years and am in a long-term relationship with my girlfriend, 30, for about 4 years. Overall, things have been great, normal ups and downs, etc., but there is this sort of chronically underlying problem that has been eating at me with my girlfriend over the past few years. When I met her, she had just moved back to her childhood home and was saving money and figuring out her next moves. She had an apartment for 1 year from fall of 2020 to 2021 and decided to move back home again after not loving things with her roommate and wanting to save more money. After moving home, she made a few poor financial decisions and increased her debt to the point where moving out is now pretty much unattainable. And the goal has become to get debt free. On top of this, her social life has been declining over the years, with her breaking down the other night over how alone she feels and how she is having a hard time connecting with new people, finding someone who could potentially be working towards living together and building a life with, etc. Additionally, she no longer enjoys her field and wants to get out, but currently has few prospects due to financial constraints and lack of a bachelor's degree. None of this is particularly a problem for me, but I do feel bad when I see things snowball for her and not go her way. I try to support her as much as I can and give advice when asked. The long term issue is basically that I have a hard time sharing parts of my life with her because she pretty consistently shuts down if I share that I will be taking a vacation with my spouse or a trip with friends to a cool destination or something like that. We've gone on some trips together and had fun over the years too, but due to finances and not great vacation time benefits for her, it is tough to do more than one big trip every once in a great while together. Eventually, she will come around and share that she was just feeling sad in the moment and couldn't talk about it, and I can provide some comfort then. But in the in between, I am sometimes quite literally at a table with her out to dinner, with her not making eye contact with me, responding with one word answers tersely, and generally just showing me through all nonverbal cues that I've done something to upset her. If I ask her directly, she'll say it's fine, but is clearly upset, so cue awkward silence. This sort of behavior is played out in other ways too. Like if we go somewhere she was really stoked on and it falls flat, she just completely shuts down in the same exact manner, leaving me guessing, even though I know what it is, she just won't address it in the moment and having a crappy time with my partner, completely disengaging from me and whatever we are doing. So, cut to the acute problem now. A few weeks ago, I'd mentioned I was going to open up my circle a bit and make new connections, possibly romantic ones. We'd had a long weekend together at my place, so I waited until the morning of the last day to bring it up, trying to be sensitive of our time together and focusing on us and what we were doing before talking about me meeting new folks. And she completely shut down as described above. After she left, she texted me that I'd hurt her feelings and dropped that on her out of the blue, and my timing was off. I was abrupt, etc. So I apologized for my timing and asked how I could communicate better in the future. She said she doesn't know. We talk on the phone the next day. I ask what her expectations are if I meet someone new, and she says, I want you to feel like you can share those things with me if you want to. I ask again how to communicate these things well to her, and she says, I don't know. I end up meeting someone I clicked with immediately, a pleasant surprise, and I'm stoked and going to continue seeing her. We hung out a couple of times over 2 weeks, and given how it went last time, I am trying to find the right time to tell my girlfriend so she is not upset and left feeling alone if we are apart. Over those 2 weeks, there were several episodes of her having a hard time, really bad days. And then one night we were out when I was literally about to share the news when she just started crying about how depressed she is and how she is struggling to have friends, hobbies, and hope for her future. So I hold off. 2 days later, she is in good spirits. We're doing good. So we meet up for a sleepover, and I take her out for a drink before we get some takeout to share the news at the top of the night so we can process together. Well, I share the news, and she shuts down again. Several times I ask, "Are you okay?" And she just says, "Yeah," in a manner that indicates she definitely is not. About an hour and a half later, after eating dinner and watching a movie, I ask her again, "Are you okay?" And she basically tells me I should have told her sooner. She feels it was abrupt again, and then basically comparing my love life to hers and saying how she feels so alone, but that we are polyamorous and I'm free to pursue relationships with other people if I want to. I give her as much comfort as I can, and we seem to come around and end up having a decent night, but it still feels very much like an elephant in the room, like all the times described above. I ask again how I can improve communication. She again says, "I don't know." Past few days, she has been more distant towards me without expressing anything. I'm doing my best to show affection and give her attention to reassure her that this new connection is not a threat to her or our relationship at all, but she is lukewarm about it. Anyway, part of me just feels like this all boils down to her being unhappy with her life and not being able to fully support me in my own happiness. As of now, I'm very happy in my life with a stable job, several other income opportunities, housing, finishing a graduate degree, and getting a lot of vacation time to go and do the things I love. I feel like she is constantly measuring herself against others and is hurt when she is perceived as less than, and is also pretty critical of herself for living at home, and being in a pretty rough financial situation, much of which was due to her making some bad decisions, which she acknowledges she regrets. I feel like with a new partner coming into my life, despite NRE, I feel we've connected very well, and I imagine this will be a romantic connection that lasts at least several months, if not years. It is bringing these communication, comparison, and jealousy issues to a head between us, and I just don't know what to do. I think she could benefit from therapy, but she always just goes once and quits, seemingly when she is challenged by the therapist to change her life. She gets defensive and shuts down almost chronically. All right, so any advice or perspective is appreciated. I'm not even sure what I'm asking. If I were to bring this up as a conversation, it would almost certainly end up with her shutting down and me feeling frustrated and like I'm doing something wrong because she is now hurt and sad, but I'm just trying to share things about my life with someone I love.
Well, if she won't go to therapy, bring therapy to her, namely the book More Love, Less Conflict. It teaches you how to talk with people and to get transversely information in there. But she's got some really big issues here that affects her. She feels out-educated, out-financed, and out-capable.
And I think shutting down might be the wrong word for it. It sounds like she's dissociating.
Right.
Like it's not that she's just going, okay, well, I need to process this. Let me take some time with it.
Right.
She's completely walking out. Like, she may physically be present in the room. She ain't there anymore.
Right.
She has left the building.
Right.
So that's probably issue one. To understand is that this isn't just run-of-the-mill shutting down. This is dissociation.
Right.
Because it pretty much reads textbook.
And that's dangerous.
Yeah, that's very dangerous.
Yeah.
Because that's a strong indicator that what's going on for her is a little more than just being depressed and just struggling.
Right.
She's basically stuck.
Right.
In a prison of her own creation.
Right.
And when she says she doesn't know what she needs, she really means that.
Right.
She is trying to, and this is not uncommon in people's late 20s and 30s.
Right.
Is she did, well, one of two things occurs. You either did or didn't do all the things you were supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
You got somewhere with it.
Right.
And that somewhere isn't necessarily bad.
Right.
It's just not good either.
Exactly.
So it becomes this kind of trap of like death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Mm-hmm.
Is that no one individual part of her life is so horrible that it clearly indicates you need to run away from this.
Correct.
Start over, do something different, find a new job, figure it the fuck out.
Right.
It becomes this self-perpetuating trap.
Right.
That if maybe, and it typically will fall into the category if you just work a little harder.
Right.
The famous worst words ever given as advice. If you just work a little harder,
mm-hmm.
and ultimately it doesn't happen. But it does mean that what you're seeing with, like, you know, things that don't turn out as planned,
mm-hmm.
is that her entire emotional being gets devoted to that thing.
Right.
So one of two things can happen in that situation. It goes off perfectly without a hitch, and it is exactly as planned or better.
Mm-hmm.
At which point, the emotional orgasm.
Right.
And she, at least in that moment, is at the highest of pinnacle highs.
Right.
Because everything is running great. Everything is amazing. My life is amazing because this is all she's got.
Right.
But once it deviates from the plan and starts to go south, the exact opposite occurs.
Right.
So it's, you could sort of liken it to like a generated bipolar disorder. It's not bipolar.
Right.
It's not bipolar. This is, her life is stuck in this in-between, this limbo. And she's having to feed all of her joy, happy, into transient things that could go wrong.
Right.
Like, this isn't a self-generating source of happiness. That, you know, I woke up today, it's bright and sunny, or, well, it's raining, but that brings, you know, pretty flowers.
Mm-hmm.
That's an organic sense of happiness.
Right.
That, okay, the situation's transient and, you know, it has positive benefits. I can learn from this. We can all grow from it.
Mm-hmm.
That is a self-perpetuating sense of happiness.
Well, it is, but when we go to the other side of this, and this is the more harder side of this is wrecking everybody's world. And this is the harder, because I promise you the husband's getting sick of it too.
Oh, the nesting partner? Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Because fundamentally it keeps you on eggshells.
Right.
And trying to, the reason you feel you can't communicate is because you can't.
Exactly.
Because all communication is mediated by her mood.
Mm-hmm.
And this feeling like, and responsibility you've fundamentally been given by her, that everything you say or do
mm-hmm.
is either going to send her over the moon,
right,
or shove her to the center of the earth.
Right.
One of the two, there's no in between.
Right.
She is already at a point in which her communication is going to be unhealthy.
Right.
You're not responsible for that. So one, take your responsibility for you are not responsible for how you make other people feel.
Right.
Not when you're not trying to be mean, not when you're not trying to legitimately hurt them, but when you're communicating information, you're not responsible for ruining someone's day.
Right.
Because that's the level of investment she has in every communication with everyone in her life right now. Is this dichotomy.
Right.
Is either you're going to give her the best news ever, or you're going to ruin her life.
Or both.
One of the two. You don't have an in-between.
All right.
In a healthier, I'm not going to call it normal, typical, or anything like that, but in a healthier communication situation, in a healthier person, we all have to take in information that is like, oh, well, that kind of sucks.
Yeah.
And move on.
All right.
And we're not so grossly affected by a good 95% of it.
Right.
You know, like we can feel happiness for others. We can maybe feel a little twinge of like, oh, wish it were me. You know. That's normal. Or that's healthier.
Right.
Now there's varying degrees. Some people have triggers, some people have things, but this is everything.
Right. But at the same time, I'm concerned with her behavior of a new dating partner.
Yeah.
Like that sends red flags left, right, in the center of Texas.
I think it's on one level she wants to know.
Mm-hmm.
On the other, like as a healthy, responsible partner in a relationship, I want to know this.
Right.
That's one mindset.
All right.
There's a second mindset going on of, I don't want to hear about it because I don't want to hear about happy people.
Right.
I don't want to hear that he went and took her here and took her there and they did this and my life sucks. I could have been doing that, but no, he has to see this other person.
Right.
That I don't think she inherently knows is going on in her head, but is at least aware of.
Right.
Like she's not actively engaged in like this as a full, complete thought.
Right.
But we've all had people like that in our lives, though.
Right.
Typically, it's someone who brags all the time, for instance. You know, that friend that comes up, oh, I just bought a new Cadillac. We just got back from, you know, the lake house, and we've done this, and we went here, and blah, blah. And you're just sitting there the whole time going, oh, shut the hell up.
Right.
So every time you see them, it's like, oh, God, no.
Right.
I don't want to hear it.
Well, see.
Like, you know, it's not that you're not happy for them. Like, yay, you have a lake house. Yay, you bought a new car.
Right.
Yay, you did all these things. But at the same time, it gets to a point that it's like, oh.
And see,
I
that's
don't want to talk to you.
my thing, though, is, you know, if you had that behavior when I came back from a date, we'd have it.
Oh, yeah. Like, yeah. Oh, that'd be bad. But no, I mean, one, generally speaking, like you should have at least a desire for information. If not every relationship requires it, but at least enough to know, did you have a good time?
Mm-hmm.
And want your partner to have a good time.
Right.
And okay, yeah, maybe they're going to throw it in your face that I got to go to the brand new restaurant and I got to order whatever I wanted and the cheesecake was amazing, but they didn't have any extra for me to bring home. So,
right.
And okay, as a partner, you're allowed to have a moment of like, well, I'm going to knife you in the back over the cheesecake thing, but that's okay. I'm glad you had a great time and sincerely mean it.
Right.
Not that you're actually going to knife them in the back. We don't do that. I'm just saying, though, cheesecake makes me less knifey.
Well,
cheesecake.
True. That's why you get two.
I just try to slip it in there anywhere I can. Just cheesecake. Bring cheesecake.
Yeah, I know. You got your cheesecake.
I did. Gas station cheesecake, but it was actually good.
Well, I didn't have a choice in that.
It was good. No, I know. Like there were issues. Like the date, but that's also a thing of like your date didn't go according to plan, and I'm also having a moment with it of like, like really?
Yeah, it was
Like,
still fun.
Yeah, like you still had a great time. Like everything was fine. It was fine. But like at that starter point of like, what do you mean I don't have cheesecake from there?
Right.
It's like, well, didn't quite go exactly as planned.
Right.
Okay, cool. What happened?
Right.
Like, was it okay? Is everyone all right? Like, like what prevented my cheesecake from being from here instead of there?
Right.
Because this is a cheesecake of last resort that is still good.
Yep.
Because it's cheesecake and all cheesecake's good. But it's a cheesecake of last resort.
Well, it was very good cheesecake, and actually I wouldn't mind getting it again. Not just because.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking maybe while I'm out.
Okay.
But no, it falls in the category. Like, we'll go back to my other commentary of I don't like roses, especially don't ever show up with roses from a gas station.
Right.
That's just asking to die with me.
Right.
It's not that I don't appreciate and have seen beautiful roses in gas station coolers.
Mm-hmm.
I have. There's some beautiful arrangements there. That's not the rose is not specifically the issue.
Right.
It's the representation and the placement.
Right.
It's the same with cheesecake. Is
right.
It just because it's a cheesecake of last resort,
right,
doesn't mean it's bad cheesecake.
Right.
It just means I know where this came from, and that's because it's the only place open.
Right.
Cheesecake of last resort.
Right. But again, at the same level of that, it's like okay. This is how you know your partner wants you to go on a damn date.
Okay.
More than you're looking forward to going to the damn date. I'm sitting here working. He's like, don't you got a date to get ready? I'm like, yeah, he said he'd be late. Well, it's like such and such. You need to get showered. Fine. Yeah, because I feel, I'm like, fine. You make sense. He remembered I had a date more than I remembered I had a date.
I'm just saying, you have a tendency to like space out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is what gets me. He knows.
Right.
He has a tendency to space out and forget things. And like the time blindness thing.
Right.
That like all of a sudden you sat down, it was like 2 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And then next thing you know, you're going to be getting a message from him going, okay, so when are you ready to meet up?
Right.
And there is going to be an orchestric symphony of, oh, fuck, shit, piss, goddamn motherfucker, going through the house like a tornado whirlwind, trying to grab a shower, brush teeth, shave, fix hair, do all the things, pick out nice clothes, and then make 14 trips between the car and the house because he has forgotten his wallet, his cigarettes, his keys, his lighter. You name it, he has forgotten it. And then has started out of the driveway before realizing he's wearing 2 different shoes because he'll do it. I'm going, you having a date means I need to at least know when you need to leave by so that I can predict when you need to start getting ready. So that you can do this not as a tornado whirlwind through this house, leaving a wake of destruction behind you, but as a calm, semi-organized, civil human being. And I can anticipate and comment on, like, honey, those are 2 different shoes. Before you get to the car and save the walkway.
Okay.
because that's how that goes. Yeah, Joe, don't come home if you don't have cheesecake. Damn, Skippy.
But do call you so you can adjust my schedule. Got that.
Yes. And your Monday show, me. Oh, I've got 2 hours until it's on. Also me. Oh, it's 7 p.m. I missed it.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, I think the notification this week has been disorganized. That's all I'm saying.
We came off all the stuff of Valentine's week, and like the weekend hit hard.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're coming back up, and this coming week should be much better.
Yes. Hopefully,
Like, yeah,
we'll have everything pre-planned out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was just a lot of things didn't run right over the weekend, including me. Like, I felt like garbage this weekend.
I know. I think I needed to turn you to push the reset button or unplug your cable and put it back up or something.
You know, not wholly a bad idea.
Right.
But yes.
All right. So let's check the poll out. No, you are not the asshole. Yes, you should sue your guidance counselor.
Pretty much. Like, that is it's not that things don't happen inadvertently, but this is seeming more, if not deliberate.
Mm-hmm.
It is so negligent.
Right.
Like, how can you be this bad at your job?
Easily. They're idiots.
Just saying.
Yep.
Just saying. But yeah. Alrighty. Well, we got through those, and we've gotten through a show a little bit longer than normal. Been a while.
Agreed, Brenda. It is hitting harder and longer and much more attackatory. I think Pluto has something to do with it.
But we're surviving.
We
We'll make it work.
All right. So with that, guys, I will see you on tomorrow night, actually, for Energy Overview.
Mm-hmm.
Which reminds me, I've got to get some crap loaded up for that because we have new bumpers.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And,
yep. So there's that. And tomorrow is Psychic Saturday. There are a few more openings, not many. I book up easily then.
Oh yeah, that email went out this morning, and there were some quick responses. Like, y'all were ready and waiting, just like credit card in one hand and go.
Right.
If you haven't booked yet, do it.
Do it quickly. And then Psychic That Plans is at 8 p.m. on Sunday, the 25th. So with that, guys, we will see you later. Bye, y'all.
Oh, we've got to thank some people.
Yes, you do.
All right. So, of course, we want to thank Beverly Walker, Mika G, Kathy, Mary Winfield, Brenda, Shannon C, Shannon D, Lady Gwendolyn, Charles Shaw, Tracy Van, Caitlin Bell, and Devin. If you'd like to learn more about us, the show, or how you too can become Patreon sponsors and receive all the wonderful benefits our baristas receive, please visit us at pcspnetwork.com.
Yes. Good night.
Good night.